Okay, so we've got our render now, and let's utilize that, right? So if we go back to motion tracking, we could get started here. However, I realize now that we've done this work in this roto marker project, when actually we should go back and do this work in the real project where we're going to actually use these masks. Because I've already insanely messed up all of our layers for this specific project, just because I kind of wanted to keep it clean and simple and kind of its own thing. So we probably shouldn't have done this part in this project. We should have done this in the original project. So let's go ahead and do that. I think we might be able to salvage some of this. This plane track does have a name, I believe, right? Mountain plane. So let's try and save it. I'm going to hit save just so my roto marker project is where it needs to be. And I'm going to open up my my last actual project, right? I'm going to go into motion tracking. Oh, look at this. Oh, did we do that in here? I guess we did, right? Before we started the motion tracker thing. Right. I forgot already. All right, so great. That's in here. Now we just need to bring in that piece of footage and do the tracks on that, the plane tracks and the rotoscoping, right? Excuse me. Let's get this going. So what you want to do, instead of bringing in, you know what, we could bring in whole new footage, right? We could do that. I think so. Yeah, let's just bring in some whole new footage. Close this out, open, and we're going to grab the roto markers final that you just rendered, open clip, should bring in the whole thing. If you tab and go back to the tracking plane, or the tracking panel, prefetch, you do not need to set your scene frames again because it should be exactly the same. And now, if you take a look at that, you can see exactly what's happening, right? Our 4 red dots create a perfect plane for the pathway. And if we look up here, we've got some nice, we've got a really nice set of tracks for the bushes up there as well. And I think it's going to go very nicely. I think we're going to track 5 points up here for this plane track, and then these 4 obviously for the ground plane track. So let's make those plane tracks nice and quick. We're just going to do some typical tracking. However, I do want to set to previous frame on your tracker, because the scale of some of these spheres is going to change so much that you're going to need that. So let's go ahead. I'm going to start up here, tracking this one, make this a little bit more like that. Hit L, lock it to the center if you'd like, and Control Shift T, track backwards, and it nailed it right on the first one. Control L to lock, back at that last frame, and I'm going to select this one. Scale it up a tiny bit, put it in the center, Control Shift T, tracks backwards, and Control L. And let's just keep on doing that for the rest of the ones that we want to track. Control Shift T, track backwards. So here's something I'm not doing. I'm not going to track this one, and I'm not going to track this one. And why is that? Because you can see as they, here at the end, if you look at the line, if there was an imaginary line drawn right here, and this sphere is on the right side of it, and as it goes through the shot, it starts out actually on the left side of it. So it crosses over that line, and I'm a little bit afraid that that is going to mess up the plane track a bit. So I don't want to do that one yet. And I also feel the same way about this center one here on the bottom. You can see it moves from, it starts on the right side between these two and ends up on the left side. So I'm going to leave those two go for now and just track these ones that give me a nice clean, like a 5 points that'll give me a nice clean plane, I hope, with any luck. Go ahead back to the end, and let's track this last one right here. And Control Shift T. Excuse me, Control L. Got a bit of a cough or something. So now let's go ahead and track these red ones as well for the pathway. Again, same exact thing. Nothing different. Control Shift T, tracking backwards. Gets to the end, we lock it up, Shift right arrow takes us back to the end, and let's get these little tiny ones. Scale it down a bit, and Control Shift T, tracking backwards, Control L. And Control, Scale, Placement, Control Shift T, Control L to lock, and let's do that last one. And then we can move on. What am I doing here? There we go. Scale. Then we can move on to the plane track and the roto. Control Shift T, tracking backwards. Come on, come on, come on. And Control L. There we go. I'm going to hit L to unlock the footage, F. And now we can see we've got nice tracks for the planes. So let's go ahead and create those planes. I'm going to create them on the last frame. Actually, before we do this, let's switch this footage out. Let's take it back to our other footage. Now, here's the thing. If we switch right here and go back to our other footage, we go back to all those trackers, right? We don't want that. We want to see these trackers with that other footage. The way to change that is over here on the right, footage settings. Go ahead and select that and go back to the Canyon Set Extend piece of footage. And there you go. Prefetch, loads it up in RAM again. And now you can see your new trackers over top of the old footage, and you can take a look at these and you can see that we are magically tracking things behind her head. That is the glory of 3D solves. So let's go ahead and set these plane tracks. I'm going to make sure nothing is selected. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Select all 4 of those on the ground plane. Under Solve, Plane Track, Create Plane Track. Throws it in there. Name it first immediately. Pathway Plane. We're now going to have we're going to end up with 3 plane tracks in this shot. Definitely wise to name them. I'm going to position it a little bit just to kind of get a nice, just to visualize again, kind of that it's sticking with the actual plane of the ground. And I'm going to scroll through and look at that. It looks great. Looks like it's really sticking, right? So I think that's going to work wonderfully. You can even move it here, and it should just work great. Spectacular. Let's do the same on this one. I'm going to select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and create plane. And this one I'm going to call bushes. Oh, not with an equal sign, please. Bushes plane. And I'm going to position this one as such, like that, like this, and there we go. And with any luck, that will stick magically to those bushes. And that looks wonderful. So there we go. We've got our 2 plane tracks that are going to help us with rotoscoping. I'm going to deselect everything here, and I'm going to hit Tab to go over to our roto. You can see we've got our hillside slope in there. We don't need that. We don't need to be seeing that, at least. I'm going to go ahead and scroll to the end here because we have a better view of our pathway, because we're going to roto this pathway first. And I'm going to click the little plus sign down here on the mask to create a new mask. And I'm going to call it Pathway Roto. I didn't call the other one Roto. No, I just called it Far Hillside. But that's all right. Hold down Control. And, oh, you know what else? Far Hillside. Let's lock that up there so we don't, because we're kind of done with that. Let's hold down Control and start dragging out some points, right? I'm going to click there, 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 and there, and there. I think that should be pretty good. And Alt-C. There we go. And now I can adjust them. I never draw them the first time and expect them to be perfect as I'm drawing them. You know, I always intend to go back and adjust. That's actually like a weird pet peeve. Like when I'm watching a tutorial and I see somebody just scribble on some roto points to make a quick mat, and then they never fix them. You know, it drives me bonkers. It's like a weird thing. It doesn't take very much effort to straighten up your masks. So here we go. Looks pretty good. And right here now, while we're on this frame, I'm going to select everything and hit I to insert a keyframe. And if you look up here now, we've got pathway roto. We've got our keyframe right there on the last frame. If you'd like to visualize your range a bit more up here, you can go to View and Auto Set Preview Range, and it'll show you, kind of grays out these edges. And I'm going to call this Pathway 1, just in case we need to do more than one. Now the trick is to parent it to the plane track, right? So select that plane track, and then click A to select your entire mask, and Control P, and now we can deselect it and take a look at what this edge is going to do as we scroll through the shot. And look at that, it looks phenomenal. It does drift a little bit. You can see here at the end that these points that were kind of over this tuft of grass have kind of drifted a tiny bit. But believe me, look at all that motion it's captured and perspective changing. I think it's spectacular. This is how to roto using tracks however you can. So let's select a few of these, and I'm going to hit G and kind of move them into place a little bit better, and move this one down here. And just like that, I'm going to select all of them again and hit I to again insert a keyframe. And now we can see that they stick a little better, but however, right there, right, they kind of look a little bit off, huh? They seem like a little bit off right there, maybe. So let's grab a few of these guys and move them in a tiny bit. And I think that's probably pretty good. Select A with AA twice, hit I, inserts a keyframe, and hopefully that's enough for our pathway. I think it is. I think that looks great. And I think we can lock that up so we don't have to worry about it anymore. And there's our pathway roto. Another thing I'm hoping is that it covered enough of this ground that we don't have to worry about we may have to come back later and add in some garbage masks to kind of trim off a bit more. So now let's go ahead and do this hillside. This hillside I think is going to present the most problem because it's a little tough to see what's going on there. But I've got some tricks that we can do in compositing. So let's get started on that. I'm going to draw just a few keyframe or mask points like such. Put this here and put this up here. This one, and we don't have to worry too much about being this high up because there's nothing up here we're adding. Really, the only thing that we're trying to clip off is that bridge, and it's down here, so we don't have to worry too much about what's going on up here. Mostly right in this area here. So I'm gonna kind of dial those in a little bit. That looks pretty good, huh? And I'm gonna select all and insert a keyframe with I. Oh, you know what we did wrong here? We put them on the pathway roto, which isn't, honestly, it's not all that big of a deal. I just like to keep them separate for organizational means. So how do we fix this, right? Well, very easily. We've got a pathway roto that has both of them on it. Let's duplicate it by clicking this 2, duplicates it, and let's call this new one bushes roto. And in this bushes roto, we can just simply delete the pathway roto. And you can see that bushes, we can even call this bushes 1. Now you can see the bushes roto only has the bushes 1, but the pathway roto still has both of them. So if we switch back to the pathway roto and select the bushes layer, we can just delete that. So now the pathway roto only has the pathway, and the bushes roto only has the bushes. I'm going to lock the pathway so we don't screw that up, and I'm going to go back to the bushes. And we can continue rotoing here, right? We've got our 1 keyframe. We scroll through, nothing happens. We need to parent, right? So select your plane track on the bushes. Select A to select everything, and Control P. And now we do our usual crossing of the fingers, and we scroll to see what happens. And look at that! It looks great. It looks great. Wow, that worked really nicely. I'm going to actually, this point here in the center is to move the entire mask. I'm just going to move it over a tiny bit like that. Just dial in last few. I'm going to rotate that a tiny bit like that. Move this guy up and out. And you'll notice as you're adjusting these points on this new keyframe that they move funky. And that's because they're parented to this plane track now. So they're moving on that plane. So they move very strangely. So select them all, hit I, insert another keyframe. And let's take a look at how that looks. And hopefully that is good enough with any luck. I think that looks great. I think we're good to go on that one. So I'm going to lock that right there. And I'm going to lock the keyframes up there. And another thing that we need, I'm pretty sure we're going to need it, is a garbage mask that kind of covers all this other foreground. Because I think it's going to extend down pretty far, maybe out past this. If we go back to our compositing and we render and take a look. Oh, come on. Where's that bridge at? Oh, did I turn off all the... oh, I don't have them all on, right? Turn that all on and go back here and hit render again. Should still be pretty fast, and that bridge should pop up. See how the bridge extends pretty far down here, and it extends like all the way to her head over here. What we're going to do is we're going to make a garbage roto of this whole hillside. And this is shockingly fast. We just created 2 detailed ones to get this nice edge, right? To get this controlled edge. The garbage mask can be really garbagey. So let's go ahead back to the motion tracker. And I'm going to create yet another mask and call this garbage. If I can spell garbage right. GRBG is fine. That's my usual. I just scrunch it down. And I'm going to call this garbage foreground, FG. And click enter. And we've got no mask here. And we're not going to parent anything, I don't think. Anyway, you know what? Actually, let's parent. We're going to parent to this guy right here. That one single tracker that's kind of like the center of the pathway. And I'm going to go here to the very first frame where I can see the most, where our mask is going to be the biggest. And I'm going to go ahead and create as few keyframes as possible. Or not keyframes, as few mask points as possible. Alt-C, and that should join that up nicely. And there we go. I think that's going to work great. Yeah, I think that's going to work nicely. And as long as you just want to make sure that this part of it will come into contact with the masks that we've already done. And then the rest of this will trim off all that extra. If our other mask ends here, we're going to still see the bridge here. We want to trim all that off. So with everything selected, hit I, and we've got this track selected. Everything selected, Control P, should parent it right to it, which it does perfectly. Another trick you can do for rotoscoping is turn on this little record button. Automatically will insert some keyframes for us. And we can just call this garbage bushes and path. There you go. Garbage, bushes, and path. Let's go to that last frame, and I'm just going to kind of reposition some of these, right? Like that. You know what? Actually, don't do that. Select them all and scale them up. And G to move them here. And one of the magical things about Blender is that the S, the G, all that stuff for moving things around in 3D, they work just as well in 2D. That's spectacular. So there we go. And we should already have a keyframe because we turned on our record button. So now we can just kind of scroll through and see where else we need to line that up a little bit, like such. And I'm going to check something around here. I just like to kind of bisect these areas a bit. Like pull this guy up a little bit more, this guy up a bit more, and this guy up a bit more. Yeah, I think that's nice. And let's bisect this one. And I think that looks pretty good, but let's drop in a keyframe anyway. And I think we're pretty good with the garbage right here. Yeah, I think so. That looks great. Garbage roto, lock it up up here. What's next? Next would be her, right? We can go ahead into compositing. We can set up some of these masks we've already got if you want. for example, this, the pathway. Let's find where the castle, we want the bridge, right? The bridge hut, fabric, and what's this? Is this the bridge? Yes, this is the bridge. I didn't label one, huh? Bridge. And let's give it a nice color. Something, maybe we've probably used this somewhere else already, right? I tend to, yeah, something similar, but that's fine, I think. And in here, let's bring in a mask node. Drop it right in there and pull it up here. We're going to need a bunch of space here. So make some. Move this guy back a bit. And as always, we're going to turn on anti-alias, and we're going to pick first our pathway roto. And we can plug that in. Again, we're going to need the invert node. We know that from the other one. We can plug that into there, and we can hide this one so it's small, and plug it into the pre-mult. With any luck, that pathway just goes right away. And if you really want to get detailed, here's something we can do. I'm going to, right here, right? We've got our footage. If you go through the color channels, here we set up these earlier color channels for the sky, right? If we look through those color channels again, red, green, blue, and the alpha. Red is nice and contrasty. Green, these whites get a little too gray. Blue, they get even grayer. But in the red, you can see this is kind of dark and this is kind of bright. We can use this to our advantage, right? To get a nicer edge here. We can try anyway. Let's give it a shot. So I'm going to leave this connected to the viewer node, because if we go down here, back to our bridge, and we hold down shift and draw through there, we get a point. So now I've got this kind of little floaty point. I'm going to move it up here, and I'm going to throw in a converter color ramp, because I want to crush the blacks and the whites here. That's what I want to do. So I'm going to crush these until I get a nice kind of roto-y edge here, and then I'm going to crush the whites as well to kind of bring those up. And look, hopefully you see what we're going for here. Now we're getting a very nice, grassy edge, right? And we can use that with this mask, right? So if we take, we need a math node, converter math, and we're going to multiply these two together. So if you multiply, or I'm sorry, we're not. Yes, we are, actually. We are going to multiply them. If you multiply these two things together, multiply, the white, this is 1, this is 0, because white and black. Same with this, 1, 0. So when you multiply them together, hopefully it's basically the same as using this mask to cut out all the parts of this we don't want. So you plug these in and we look at it, we get this really nice grass. However, it is getting trimmed a bit, right? If we turn this off, you can see it kind of trims. Like if you watch some of this grass here, kind of trims it, a little bit here. Here's where we can use some other nodes. We can go to the filter, and there's a dilate erode node. And this node is very useful. It's not ideal in Blender, sadly. It doesn't do subpixels, which is kind of a bummer. But I think you can see the point here is if we scale that up, we get a little bit more of that detail, right? Because all this is doing is scaling this up. It's extending it by four pixels, basically. So we're kind of extending that. We kind of want to blur this a little bit. So let's throw a blur in there and get a nice, like maybe 6, 7, something like that. I don't know. Something that looks good. That looks pretty good. And then we have one more issue we need to worry about right here with this pathway. And that is that there are some black holes in here as well. These black holes are going to cause problems because they're going to let our bridge poke through the mat. So I'm gonna hide that one, make these a little small. And the way we can fix that is to duplicate our multiply node and click add. And now it's going to add anything we plug in into what we already have. So let's drag that up. And now we're adding back in our original over top of our new nice edge grass. However, we're losing quite a bit of that. So we need to actually shrink this one down a bit. So I'm just going to take this dilate, drag it, and unhide it. And I'm going to go actually -4. We'll see what that does. That looks pretty good, huh? And we can even go further to get a nicer edge like that. Looks pretty good. And I'm going to hide that, and I'm actually going to duplicate this blur, Shift D, drag it over, and I think we're good to go right there. And then just to be sure, if you click around in here, you can see, if you look down here at the value 1.3, that's the whites and blacks, right? The alpha's 1, so I think we're all right. But just to be safe, I always like to turn on clamp a little bit. Just to make sure that nothing gets crazy over here. You can see it clamps at the 1 now, so we've only got 1s and 0s, and the gray values. We don't get any negatives, we don't get anything super bright, and we can kind of collapse all this down. I'm going to hit H, I'm going to hit H, and kind of position these around a little bit, and this is our nice new matte that we're going to use instead of this, right? Instead of this that we're using here, we're going to plug in our nice matte. So we still need that invert. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to move this one back. I'm just doing a little housekeeping here. Grab all these. G. I'm going to actually pull this one out of here. Alt P pulls it out of there. And this one I'm also going to pull out of there. That one, Alt P. Move it up here, and H. I'm going to plug that in here. So now when we look at this, oh, look, it did it already, right? It fixed it. You can see exactly what happened, right? If I switch between, this is the old matte. Oh, man, come on, really? All right, this is the old matte. Forgot about the invert already. Really sharp, right? Doesn't look so great. We plug that in and we get some nice grass detail. I think that's going to look really nice. So there we go. We've got a nice foreground matte right there. And I'm actually going to make this a group, right? Control J, and we'll call this path matte. And we'll just make it like, pick a color as always, something, I don't know, it doesn't matter. And I'm even going to delete that thing because we can just move that around now wherever we need it. So now we're going to do the same thing with our hillside right here. Should we take a look and see how long we're running at? 27. All right, we got like 5 more minutes or so. I like to keep these kind of in the 30 to 40 range. Let's go ahead and do the hillside as well. I'm going to keep this separate. I'm going to duplicate this, Shift D and Alt P to pull it out of there. And let's grab the bushes roto, right? If we take a look at that, it should be that. And while we're at it, let's just duplicate it right now and choose the garbage foreground. Take a look at that. Beautiful. We'll get back to that one in a little bit. Right now we're going to concentrate on this guy. So let's do that same exact thing where we go back here. And if you want, you can pull this, you can do this, kind of pull it up here. Kind of keeps your node flow cleaner. I know a lot of people like these straight ones, but I think it's kind of neat that Blender even lets you kind of curve them. So I like to see it. It's fun. And let's take a look at these bushes now. So these bushes are going to be a little tough, right? They're kind of, everything's gray, right? This is all gray. There's slight variations in here, but it's generally gray. And I think we're going to find that in every channel. So let's try something different. There are some other modes we can take a look at. If we go under Converter, we're using the Separate RGBA to look at the red, green, and blue channels. However, we've got Hue, Saturation, Value, and we've got these other two that I'm honestly not I think this is chromatic stuff. I don't even know. Let's just throw these in here and take a look at what they offer us to work with. And this one as well. So I'm going to plug this guy into all of these. If I select that and I select that and I hit F, right? It should, and then I select that one, hit F. No, that one, F. There we go. So now we can take a look and see what we're working with here. I like to space them out until I figure out exactly which channel could work. So let's take a look here. Still gray. I'm just looking for any difference between this bush and the background. Look at that. That's interesting. It's really blocky and crappy, but it's not too bad. I wonder, let's see what it looks like in the beginning here. Nah, see, it's getting broken up too much. That might not work, but it could. So let's, I like, the way I like to keep track of which ones are working, I just hold down shift and cut across, and it throws a little dot, you know, the little elbow in there, and that will remind me that that one's pretty good. So now we can jump through these again, and yeah, nothing else good there. Let's take a look at the hue, saturation, and value. And nothing is looking too good there either. And let's take a look at this. Whatever this is. This might be like, oh yeah, I'm not even going to speculate. I have no idea what these are. All right, so we have another option here. We can kind of jump to some of these things and take a look and see what we got. But nothing's looking amazing yet, right? So we don't have too many options here to go with this, right? Yeah, I guess you can kind of see that this is literally the same color as this stuff back here. So it was just hopeful that we would have something. We do have this thing, right? This is, we can throw on a color ramp and see if this is going to be useful. But I'm betting that it is not going to be. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be, right? Because it's, we need, that bridge is going to come across right here, and it's still white here. So I don't think these are going to work. So Control X, let's leave those behind and just work with what we have. Which is this, right? We've got this guy. Let's take a look at the end frame. I think we need to re-render because it may be on a different frame. Excuse me again. I'm going to hit save often. Don't forget. Look at that. That's looking really nice, huh? We can even blur that a little bit if you want. I like to blur before the invert. I'm going to Shift A. Sorry, we're jumping back to this other one. I'm just seeing things and calling them out as I see them. There we go. Look at that. That's nice, huh? Hit M to mute it, and you can see it comes back sharp. But if you do that, it looks real nice. Yeah, that's perfect. That looks great. All right, let's give this a shot here. We are going to combine mats, you just multiply them. So I'm going to grab a math, and what we're going to want to do is we're going to duplicate this and Alt P, and that's just the invert again, because as we know, we need to invert these and plug it into the value, and if we multiply them, you can see they're coming out together. We've still got our nice grass detail down here, and we're getting our trim here as well. So I'm going to hit H to scale that down. I've turned on clamp again as well. I always like my final one to kind of clamp because it's just the alpha channel. And let's try this same trick, right? Let's try this exact same thing. I'm going to select all four of these and these two, and I'm going to Shift D to duplicate all those nodes. I'm going to Alt P, pull them out of there, and I'm going to plug in this mat into all of these. And what I do need again, however, is this to see if this is going to be workable, which I'm not sure if it is, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. Let's add in a color ramp. I have no idea if this is going to work, but we are on this journey together, my friends. So here we go. Oh, look at that. Actually, that looks... we're going to get some strands, maybe. Maybe? Like that, huh? No, you know what's happening is down here, it's just not working, I don't think. Let's give this a shot. Let's see. We're going to plug this into that multiply. which is exactly what's happening down here. We got a color ramp going into the multiply, and then we're going to plug this into the invert instead. And if we take a look at that, you'll see exactly what we're getting, which isn't horrible, but it's not that great either. Let's see here. Let's take a look and see what it looks like, right? Are we getting any branch? Look at that, actually. That's not horrible. We can adjust this kind of on the fly, and you can kind of see what's happening there. Turn this up a little bit. Down. This down. That's not too bad, actually. That could work. Yeah, that's not horrible. Should we go ahead and just use that? I guess so, right? I'm going to throw these into their own group again. Put that invert at the end. And this is just in case I want to throw another blur on here. Do I want to do this? Do I want to do this? Let's turn this off. M. See what that looks like. M. Let's leave it. We'll leave that in there. Keep in mind that you may want to come back later on and adjust this, right? I'm going to throw in one more blur just for the heck of it and blur it maybe like 4, right? 4, 4, and we'll get that nice final blur on there. And let's call this Bushes Matte. And we can make this one another color, something like that. Who knows? Be fun. It's ridiculous. So anyway, there we go. Let's see. Now we've got to worry about the... we may not even need that garbage, huh? That garbage one we made? If I do this and put that in here and unplug that... Come on, what are you doing? Control X. We're actually doing pretty good right there. We're not getting anything left over there. But just in case we do, I wonder where we would. Where would we? Here? Let's see. Render that. Look at that. That could work. I mean, I think that's actually the background. But you know what? You can even dial that down a bit. That is the wider one, which is this one. Right? So if we mess with this a little bit, you'll see this edge kind of shift a bit, right? There it is getting wider. There it is getting tighter. That looks pretty good. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. H. So that's working pretty good. I think that's probably fine, right? Our roto up here is still working very nicely. Our rotos down here are working wonderfully. Save often. And I'm going to throw that garbage one in just in case. If we make this bigger and we grab all of these things right here and move them back a little bit. And we just grab this one, put it down here at the end. And you can see what we're going to do here. We are going to... We're going to subtract, duplicate that, subtract, and plug in this one. It should cut all that out. So now we don't have to worry about the bridge being over here at all. It should be fine. We can delete that thing, and we can delete this thing too. Control X, and we can take a look at our output, and we don't have to worry about the bridge now. So the bridge is probably pretty good. However, the only thing left is her head. And save often, sorry. And if I go back to motion tracking and we take a look at this, I just don't see any easy way around her, around rotoing her head. I'm not sure. There's a slight chance. We're going to have to garbage roto it at the very least. But there is a chance that we could use a matte as well. Let's take a look. Let's go back to compositing, and hopefully I've still got all this stuff in here as well. Let's take a look at her hair. I want to go to one of these frames where she's, yeah, like out here, something like that. Yeah. If we render, this should all line up really nicely. It looks really good. Let's take a look at her hair. So now we're hoping one of these channels will provide us. Oh, look at that. Look at that. This could be it, huh? No, you know what? This is going to get in the way. We're going to have to garbage roto. Ah, come on. Really? See that bright patch of ground there? That's always going to create a problem just because of the values of it. That's interesting. Not usable though, huh? See that? That's interesting too. What if we get back to this one? Guess these are kind of the same. Not all that different as I was hoping. I don't see any way around it other than to roto her head. Although we could get a nice garbage off of this maybe, but this is just going to create a problem because it's kind of the same values as her hair. So I think if you want to watch me time-lapse roto her head, check out the next video. And you can watch that whole process, but literally all I'm going to do is go over to the motion tracker. Maybe I'll try and track her head and get a point that we can parent to. Yeah, I'll bet we can probably track something. And then I'm just going to roto her hair, and then I'll come back in the final video. We'll put everything together. We'll render this bad boy, and we'll call it done. So check out the, if you want to watch me roto, check it out. If not, see you in the last one.